Ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
We going. My pants poster said, we going ultra. Yeah. We going ultra black. I got a toast to that. We don't fold the crack. We going. Occasion we rose to that. Going postal. We going ultra black. Watching the global change. Hop in the coldest range. Hit boy on the beat. This poster slap. We going ultra black. We going.
I'm Tavis, Smiley. Glad to have you with us in this hour of our program today. I've been looking forward to this conversation. I am pleased to welcome in studio historian, professor, and vice chancellor at UC Santa Barbara, Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, who has come in studio for a conversation about and celebration of the 100th anniversary of the classic text, The New Negro, an Interpretation. Dr. Stewart won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago for his book about the New Negro editor. That would be Alain Locke. Known as the father of the Harlem Renaissance, Locke's 1925 book is a powerful, provocative, and affecting anthology of writers including Zora Neale Hurston, Countee Cullen, W.B. Du Bois, and others who shaped the Harlem Renaissance movement and who help us consider the evolution of the African American in society. And so it is my great delight, my joy, in fact, to have Dr. Stewart in studio right now as we celebrate the 100th anniversary, again, of this classic book called The New Negro, an Interpretation by Alain Locke. Dr. Stewart, good to see you, my friend. How are you, sir?
Oh, thank you very much for having me here. I'm so honored to be here, and especially on December 1st, which is literally the 100th anniversary of the publication of The New Negro, an Interpretation.
We are glad to have you here on this special day. We mentioned earlier in our program that your friend Dr. West was here.
Yes.
Dr. Corner West and I were talking earlier on today's program about the fact that today is December 1st, and it was 70 years ago today that Rosa Parks refused to give up that seat on that bus in Montgomery. So December 1, there's a lot riding on it. Richard Pryor was born 85 years ago today.
Wow.
So there's a lot riding on
Yes.
December the 1st.
Yes, obviously a very spiritually powerful day.
That's right. And so to have you in studio on the day that this book was published 100 years ago today is a really big deal. So Dr. Stewart walked in the studio and about made me fall out of my chair. This audience knows that I'm not just a book author, but I'm a lover of books. I have a pretty amazing book collection. I'm always trying to make it more amazing with new editions. But there are a lot of editions in my collection that are first edition. So Dr. Stewart walks into the studio with a copy of The New Negro by Alain Locke that was published 100 years ago today. He walked in and pulled this book out, and I said, "Don't you do it. Don't you do it." and I just looked at him, and I said, "Is that it?" He said, "That's it." I said, "What edition is it?" He said, "First edition." I about fell out this chair. So I am holding in my hands right now, for those who are watching, I am holding in my hands right now a first edition copy of The New Negro, edited by Alain Locke, published 100 years ago today. This is a big deal. Take me back 100. There's so much to talk about in this hour. First of all, I'm fascinated by this book and how it got in your collection.
Yes.
Tell me about that story.
Yes. Well, in the course of working on the biography, at various times, people would say, well, you ought to have a first edition. Mm-hmm. And one time, I had a hard time getting one.
Yeah.
One time when I was living in D.C., I went by a bookstore, and there was one propped up there. And I said, "Oh, is that for sale?" He said, "Well, no, actually, it's been ordered by Henry Louis Gates." And so he said, but he hasn't actually gotten in touch with me for a while.
Yeah.
And so I thought for a minute there was a moral choice at that moment. And I wrote...
Do I steal Skip's book?
Right. So then I wrote to Skip and I said, "Oh, by the way, your book is in." He said, "Oh, wow, thank you very much. I'm surprised you didn't take it." And I said, no, brother. You'd ordered it. You'd found it. So a couple of years later, I found one. I found this one, and I was able to purchase it. And, I have a couple of others, too. They're different editions. There's the first edition in 1925. There's a second printing in 1927. Skip and I are actually going to be putting out a collector's edition of the original 27 edition to coincide with the 100th anniversary in 2027.
Yeah, it was a good thing you didn't steal his book, because y'all would not be co-authoring anything right now
Right.
if you had stolen Skip's text.
Right.
But I'm looking forward to that book that you and Dr. Gates will put out together. Let me just ask a couple of broad questions. We got the hour here, so we can work our way through this.
Yes.
What was Alain Locke thinking 100 plus years ago when he started pulling this thing together?
Well, I think that, Locke, of course, as many of your listeners know, had gone to Harvard. He was the first Black Rhodes Scholar to Oxford. He had experienced racism for the first time, but also experienced connection with other cosmopolitan colonials from India, from Egypt. And he developed this sort of race nationalism in his own mind, something that was, rising with Marcus Garvey and others. But he was particularly interested in the aesthetics, how that around the world he saw that Black people, wherever we went, essentially created something new out of what we found. And when he came back and he was in the United States and he was teaching at Howard University, he would go up to Harlem and he would see something unique happening, that how people who had come up with the Great Migration from the South during World War I suddenly were creating a new world in New York that was different from the world that whites were creating. There was aliveness there. There was jazz being played. There were cabarets and speakeasy. And he began to see this as aesthetic brilliance, as something that we have that is an intelligence that comes out of Africa, but has been redeveloped and redeployed wherever we went. And so when he started reading the poems of Langston Hughes and Countee Cullen and the short stories of Zora Neale Hurston, he said, how can I connect that new literary intelligence with the musical, with the visual art, with all of those things? And that's when he began to think of it as a renaissance. He had studied the Italian Renaissance when he was in college, but now he sees, this is a different kind of renaissance coming out of the oppressed, who are redefining and reinventing themselves through art, despite what the rest of society is doing. And of course, I think it's relevant to today because this was a very conservative, hostile time in America. I mean, we're dealing with anti-immigration now. In 1920 and 24, some of the fiercest anti-immigration laws were passed. We all know about the bombings of Black communities. Lynchings were still going on. And yet in Harlem, Black people were using their aesthetic intelligence to create something new. So in this book, he tried to really engineer a new definition of Black people as cognitive innovators who are creating Black modernity and welcoming, interestingly enough, whites into that, and with jazz, with the speakeasies, something we can be proud of, and we don't have to be apologetic, and we don't have to say we're copying anyone else with what we're doing.
Just getting started in this hour. It's going to be a good one, too. I can tell you already. I'm only asking one question, and I got all that out of one question. It's going to be a great hour with Dr. Jeffrey Stewart as we celebrate the 100th anniversary. The book was published 100 years ago today. I've got a copy on my desk right in front of me now. The New Negro, an Interpretation is our subject for the hour. We're going to talk about that and Alain Locke and a great deal more. You're listening to Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, and I'm glad about it, on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Hi, Hi, I'm Kylie.
I'm John.
And I'm Garrison.
And a little thing we love about the 30-count Chick-fil-A nuggets
is sharing it in the car during the holidays.
I do love that.
We will pack the car with gifts. And of course, we go and pick up our family's favorite nuggets.
Every nugget is tasty times quadrillion.
And we get all the sides.
Yeah, the ooey gooey mac and cheese is a big hit.
Everyone from 1 to 116 would love Chick-fil-A's chicken nuggets.
Share the nuggets, share the joy. Order the 30-count Chick-fil-A nuggets on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
Celebrate the soul of the holidays and support Altadena and Pasadena. Join us on Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, a joyful night of Motor City soul, gospel, and holiday classics featuring an 18-piece band, all-star vocalist, and community choirs, all in support of the Black LA Relief and Recovery Fund. This performance comes at a pivotal time for many in Altadena and Pasadena. This is their first holiday season since the devastating Altadena Eden Canyon fire, which destroyed homes and community spaces. While the physical losses are immense, the power of community remains, and your attendance directly supports recovery, resilience, and renewal. So, be sure to join us Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, benefiting survivors of the Altadena Eden Canyon fire. For ticket information, just log on to tickets@thewallace.org. That's tickets@thewallace.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580 and the Black Freedom Fund.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Your ambition just met its match with Robinhood. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto all on one platform. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. All investments involve risk, including loss of principal. Options, futures, and crypto trading carry significant risk and may not suit all investors. Securities offered through Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Futures trading is offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, not FDIC or SIPC protected. Crypto offered through Robinhood Crypto LLC, NMLS ID 1702840, not FDIC or SIPC protected. Portfolio management offered by Robinhood Strategies, an SEC registered advisor.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, historian, professor at UC Santa Barbara, vice chancellor there as well, and the author of his own book called The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. So he's written a book, a Pulitzer Prize-winning book about Alain Locke. But we are celebrating all things Alain Locke today because it was 100 years ago today that this classic text, The New Negro, An Interpretation, celebrating the Harlem Renaissance, was published. And as I mentioned a moment ago, in case you've just tuned in, he brought in studio with him his first edition copy of this book, The New Negro and Interpretation. And I'm trying not to think like he did when he saw Skip's book on the shelf at that bookstore about trying to run out of the studio 45 minutes from now and steal his book. Steal his first edition copy. I wouldn't do that to you, Dr. Stewart, but I thought about it, though. I love these first editions, man. And to have a book, I mean, literally, be holding a book right now in my hand that's 100 years old. And this book is in good shape.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of first editions that are not. I'm holding for those who are watching. You see the spine of it. And I want to just open the inside as well. So that's the spine. Here's the cover for those who are watching right now. On our YouTube channel or on the app, there's the cover there. And I want to open up the inside. So hold on, Miles. Let me give you. I want to show you the color on this. I didn't know they could even do color like this 100 years ago. But the artist, let's look at this color on the inside.
Yeah, that was by Vinod Rice, a German artist that Locke had recruited.
Yeah.
And that's called the Brown Madonna.
Yeah, the Brown Madonna.
So he's trying to bring that out, that we have a tradition of Christianity, and that baby there is, he called the Changling in their laps. That's what the New Negro is, the young person, because as you mentioned earlier, it's dedicated to the younger generation.
I'm glad you went there. When you open this book up, every book, not every book, but so many books have a dedication page. And this book has a dedication page, and it says this volume is dedicated to the younger generation. And then there's a music bar that says, "Oh, rise, shine, for thy light is a-coming. Oh, rise, shine, for thy light is a-coming." What do you make of the fact, again, we got the whole hour, a lot to cover here. What do you make of the fact that he felt the need to dedicate this particular book about the way we're showing up in society in the Harlem Renaissance, dedicates this to the younger generation?
Well, the youth is the new Negro. The youth is the people who've been born at this time, the ones that he was really focused on since 1901, the people who didn't know slavery as something they lived under, and the people who have a sense that they can make something out of their lives that their parents and grandparents couldn't. So youth, in fact, in there he has a whole chapter called "The Negro Youth Speaks." So it's another thing. He's thinking that in black culture even, there's often a tendency to try to silence the youth, to say, oh, the old heads know everything. Oh, we've been around. But the youth, he feels, are the engine of change. And that's another thing that I think distinguishes this book from some of the others. It focuses on race, obviously, and class, but it focuses on generation as a thing. So one of the concepts that he's offering with the new Negro is what I would call the iterative Negro. The fact that we are able to change. Every 25 years there's a new generation, and with that, black people tend to create new forms of art and culture. We have one generation that created the spirituals, another that created the blues, another that creates ragtime, and then jazz, and then on to classic jazz, and then hip-hop. That youth are the ones that are driving this. Hip-hop comes out of the young people who are trapped in a horrific situation in the Bronx and other places. Yet somehow, black people are able to use their art to escape the trap that white supremacy wants to put us in. So that's why he's always looking to the youth to mentor them, because they are the leaders. As he says in one place, it's the young people who are leading and the old people who are following. So that's kind of the spirit of black modernity that he's trying to advance through this book.
I want to read in this 100-page book, and I'm turning these pages very carefully and very slowly. Typically, when I let somebody look at my first edition, I make them put gloves on.
Right.
And I got a pair of gloves. I should have.
That's all right. That's okay.
I should have got a pair of gloves out of my office to turn these pages of this 100-year-old text that I have in my hands. But I want to just read the beginning of his foreword and the last paragraph of the foreword, which I think will help frame what this book really is about. Not that you haven't already done that, but in his own words.
That's okay.
Alain Locke writes, and I quote in the foreword, "This volume aims to document the new Negro culturally and socially, to register the transformations of the inner and outer life of the Negro in America that have so significantly taken place in the last few years." That's how he starts his foreword. He closes with this paragraph. "Negro life is not only establishing new contacts and founding new centers, it is founding a new soul. There is a fresh spiritual and cultural focusing. We have, as the heralding sign, an unusual outburst of creative expression. There is a renewed race spirit that consciously and proudly sets itself apart. Justifiably, then, we speak of the offerings of this book embodying those ripening forces as called from the first fruits of the Negro Renaissance." And there's the term I'm working my way toward, Negro Renaissance. And I was about to ask you whether or not, matter of fact, I told him I was going to ask him, whether or not we give Alain Locke the credit for that term, Harlem Renaissance. We all know that term now. Do we give him credit for that? But he refers to it in his foreword as the Negro Renaissance.
Yes. Well, this book, of course, followed a special edition of a magazine that came out also in 1925 in March. It was a survey graphic, and it was called Harlem, Mecca of the New Negro. And so that one was really focused on Harlem particularly. But in the sort of 8 months since then, essentially, he got a contract for a book to do it on a national scene. So while Harlem Renaissance might have been something he was tempted to say in the earlier, this one, really, he's focusing on Negro. He wants to be national, not Harlem. The term Renaissance was something that actually W.B. Du Bois was the first to mention in 1920, saying that we have writers enough that we can begin to think about a Renaissance. He didn't really say Harlem. He didn't really say Negro, but he at least put it out there. It was a little premature. Things hadn't sort of come together. There wasn't enough writing really to justify that at that point. But by 1925, you have Langston Hughes, you have Zora Neale Hurston, you have Countee Cullen, who's won various prizes for his poems. You have essentially a burgeoning literary movement along with jazz, and also the beginnings of a visual arts movement. Those things together, multiple areas of excellence, music, art, literature, and then drama with the great Paul Robeson emerging as an actor. That together is what that Renaissance feeling is. But it's also a little more subtle in the sense that usually you have to have a classic period before Renaissance. In the Italian version, it's the Greeks who had the classic, and then the Italian Renaissance rebirths that. For Locke, he thought that classic period was in Africa. Part of what's under the unconscious even of this is that African ability to stylize, to design, to create forms that transform what you're actually hearing and seeing because of that inheritance. We, of course, very much at that time, people like Robert Park and others believe we were completely cut off from our Africa. Locke is saying, no, there's still that African impulse, and we see it most clearly in our aesthetic forms. So the Renaissance really is an awakening and a return to a knowledge of self. He says that right there. Our spiritual and soulful awakening that heralds the possibility of a Negro Renaissance.
I want to come to that awakening a little bit later in this conversation, but since you went there, I want to follow you. I had the honor, as you may know, of having edited a book called The Covenant with Black America some years ago, almost 20 years ago now, 20 years ago. Went to number one on the New York Times bestseller list, stayed there for a number of weeks. The first book by a black-owned publishing house to go to number one on the New York Times list, and I consider it one of the seminal moments of my career to have edited that book called, again, as everybody knows, The Covenant with Black America. We just last year put out the 20th anniversary edition of that book. And in that Covenant book, I had some major people writing in this book. I mean, to this day, I'm grateful to all the big name people, all the scholars who accepted my invitation to write pieces in this book called The Covenant with Black America. But that's nothing compared to what Locke did 100 years ago. I mean, just the names of the contributors, the names of the folk in this book just give me goosebumps. You, of course, start with Alain Locke himself, right?
Right.
And you mentioned some of these already. And I'm looking now, again, in this 100-year-old book that I have in front of me that Dr. Stewart brought in the studio, this first edition copy of The New Negro and Interpretation, published 100 years ago today. I'm looking at this the table of contents, and I see names like Alain Locke, Jean Toomer, Zora Neale Hurston, Countee Cullen, Claude McKay, James Weldon Johnson, Langston Hughes, Du Bois, you mentioned earlier, Charles Johnson. I could do this all day long. But just the collaborative nature of this text, I find it arresting.
Well, it's a collaborative, I would say, intelligence, because as you know from putting that other book together, it's a particular type of intelligence to pull together people, to get them to buy into your concept. That's different than just writing a single author book.
Right.
You're creating community with that project. And it's interesting that you mentioned the covenant, because I was thinking about that as I was driving in today, is that in some ways what we need is something like that now, inspired by the New Negro. That the New Negro says, in effect, Black people can accomplish things without having to rely on other people to help us do it. Yes, we do need help. We need patronage. Locke was very strong at getting patrons and stuff. But there's something about what you were trying to do in that covenant to essentially activate different communities, to address problems, to be mindful, to use discipline, but also joy in creating livable Black communities across the country. That's something that Locke wanted to happen to come out of this. Unfortunately, it didn't, because, you know, shortly after the book, 1925, we have 1929, we have the Great Depression, and the Depression essentially takes out the white patronage that he had worked so hardly to get. People are starving to death in the streets. They're not necessarily going to be writing poetry. Nevertheless, that sense that we can be kind of a unacknowledged nation within the nation that can address its problems using our intelligence is something that I think still is laying there ready to be activated.
Kind of dormant, yeah, I hear you. What did Locke believe, and what do we get from this text published 100 years ago today, The New Negro, an interpretation, that helps us understand what was, how might I phrase this, what was animating this awakening? What was animating this Negro Renaissance?
Well, the first thing, of course, is the Great Migration. The Great Migration, which is essentially, hundreds of thousands, probably 1 million in the end, of black people leaving the South, coming to the North, some driving, some even walking out of the South into the North to take advantage of jobs that were available when the U.S. began to enter into World War I. We were actually funding and supplying weapons to World War I before we actually entered the war. But nevertheless, that led to a cessation of immigration, something that's going on right now, for example.
That's right.
And black people were invited to fill those positions in industry to keep that war industry going. So people left. It was kind of a general strike against the Jim Crow racism and lynching and voter discrimination in the South. Coming north, filled communities like Harlem, Black Chicago, Pittsburgh, with large numbers of black people who created a world and community adjusted to the modern, reinvented themselves as modern proletarians, and essentially created a world that was almost self-contained. You had musicians coming out of New Orleans, traveling north, going to Chicago, going to New York, making more money than they ever had been able to make. And that becomes kind of the lingua franca of modernity, because white America also was sort of trying to find its way in the 1910s and 1920s. It had left behind a lot of the religious and social and small group communities. Where are we going to go? What kind of America are we going to have in the 20th century? Black people supplied the soundtrack to that. They supplied the places for them to go. They supplied, after World War I, particularly in Harlem, the speakeasies, the cabarets that white people wanted to go to and celebrate, partly because of Prohibition and the alcohol was there, but partly because black people had something white people knew they wanted to get into. So that's part of the Renaissance is also affecting everyone else.
I want to talk about this aesthetic brilliance, as you put it. I love that term. I want to talk more about how our people, black people, used art to escape, another term you used earlier. You got so much going on in this Negro Renaissance, so much going on in this Harlem Renaissance. But ultimately, as you said quite beautifully, again, it's about how these black folk used art to escape the dungeons in which they were trying to hold us. And that's to say nothing of the book that he wrote about Alain Locke, The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. It's all Alain Locke for the rest of the hour. You're listening to Dr. Jeffrey Stewart and Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Dozens of new laws go into effect this week, including a bathroom bill. It's the Texas Women's Privacy Act, which conservatives have been pushing for the last decade.
Worked on for about the last 8 years, so definitely a huge victory.
That's Mary Elizabeth Castle with Texas Values. She says the bill slaps limits on women's restrooms and locker rooms, restricting them based on biological sex. A Southside Chicago church is picking up the pieces after a Thanksgiving Day fire destroyed Renewal Life Church. No injuries were reported. Services moved to Fairfield Baptist this past Sunday as the pastor plans to rebuild. And many veterans, including black veterans, face PTSD and barriers to care due to stigma and racial disparities. Advocates like Dr. Deandra Poe and James Harris, a veteran, stress culturally competent care and breaking mental health stigmas. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Think It Up is an initiative to activate student-powered, teacher-led learning projects. Students and teachers, how can you spark great learning experiences in your classrooms today? Join at thinkitup.org.
Is this the time? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It was a mixed bag for LA's NFL teams on Sunday. The Carolina Panthers snapped the Rams' 6-game winning streak. The Chargers beat the Las Vegas Raiders 31-14, but quarterback Justin Herbert suffered a fractured bone in his left hand. Herbert will have surgery today. No word yet on how long Herbert will be out. In Carolina's 31-28 win, Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford was intercepted twice. One of the interceptions was returned for a touchdown. It was the first time Stafford had thrown an interception since Week 3 at Philadelphia on September 21st. The Lakers won their 7th straight. They beat New Orleans 133-121. LeBron sat out the game with a sore foot. Luka Doncic had 34 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Lakers are 15-4. The Clippers are in Miami tonight. The 5-15 Clippers have lost 4 straight. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Roger and Tracy saved over $18,400. Cynthia was recovering from a family tragedy and saved over $10,300. If you are drowning in debt, then call Debt Blue. Debt Blue is a professional debt negotiation firm with over 20 years of experience helping people pay back a fraction of what they owe. Learn how to cut your debt up to half or maybe more. Be debt-free in 24 to 48 months, even with bad credit. With an A+ rating from the BBB, you can rest easy knowing Debt Blue is going to deliver guaranteed debt reduction. Debt Blue offers a success guarantee. You pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. That's right. You save money or it's free. Call now for significant debt relief and a free consultation. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879. You don't have to declare bankruptcy. This program works if you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in debt. Call for your free consultation today. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879.
Families have been loving LifeSource Whole House Water Systems for over 40 years. And now when you buy LifeSource, you can save up to $1,000 with the no sales tax special. Call 800-WATER-99 or visit lifesourcewater.com. Ends December 31st. Warranty limitations apply.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, historian, professor, UC Santa Barbara Vice Chancellor, and just brilliant all-around scholar. In case you've just tuned in, we've been talking in this hour, and we'll continue to do so in a moment here, about the 100th anniversary of this classic text called The New Negro by, of course, Alain Locke, The New Negro and Interpretation. I recall, of course, being assigned readings in this book when I was a college student at Indiana University. I suspect many of you listening right now have recollections of having to read chapters, pieces in The New Negro by Alain Locke. You recall learning about Alain Locke as a student. I I'm thinking now about my professors, Dr. William Wiggins and Dr. Fred McElroy. I can hear them right now in my ears, Professor Stewart, talking to me, teaching me about Alain Locke and about this book, The New Negro and Interpretation. On top of that, let me just back up. That book published again 100 years ago today. And so, again, if you just tuned in, Dr. Stewart walked in studio today with a first edition copy of The New Negro. So I just been tickled for the last 40 minutes touching this book that was published literally 100 years ago today on December 1st, 1925. On top of that, he is a Pulitzer Prize winner for writing a book about Alain Locke. Alain Locke did The New Negro, put it together, wrote the book, but he has written a text about Alain Locke himself called The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. So I'm wondering, if I'm watching my timer, if I can pivot for a second to ask you to tell me more about Alain Locke. What he did with The New Negro 100 years ago today is nothing short of brilliance. You called it aesthetic brilliance, and that's exactly what it is. We'll get back to the art of escape, but just for a moment, talk to me about Alain Locke, the man.
Yes. Well, Alain Locke was, of course, born in 1885. He was a product of the Philadelphia black bourgeoisie. He went to Harvard as an undergraduate, graduated in 3 years, Phi Beta Kappa, was brilliant, was the first African-American Rhodes Scholar chosen to go to Oxford. But there he experienced a lot of racism from Southern Rhodes scholars who didn't want him there in the citadel of Anglo-Saxism. And so after that, he realized that he couldn't escape. Sometimes when we are very successful, especially through the patronage of white people, we think we can escape. And he thought he was escaped. But he got his wake-up call over at Oxford and then worked actually with a Jewish philosopher, Horace Callan, to come up with this idea of cultural pluralism, that you can still be an American but still have your own individual culture, your own individual path as an American. Came back to the United States and got a job teaching at Howard University, went back to Harvard and got a PhD in philosophy. The first black person to get a PhD in philosophy from Harvard. But I mean, he taught at Howard.
Cornell West comes years later.
Yeah. But he basically finds his way into teaching in black communities. But he's also gay. He's also suffers from being marginalized because he's homosexual. But he's also bringing with him a kind of aesthetic knowledge, having studied in Paris, having studied in Berlin, having been abroad, and he sees black people early in the 20th century actually creating art and culture that's not that different from the kind of art and culture that he studied himself. And he says, makes that connection. Yes, everyone focuses on economics. That's Booker T. Washington. Everyone focuses, particularly Du Bois and William Monroe Trotter, focused on political activism. He's saying, why not focus on the aesthetics? Why not focus on what we create when we're not focused on white people? See? And that's something that basically is very interesting to him. And he begins to meet with these young people, help County Cullen begin to become an artist, help Langston Hughes get published. He worked with Zora Neale Hurston, who was at Howard, who helped start the Howard Players, one of those university drama. So culture is something that allows black people to see ourselves as powerful and unapologetic, as you say behind you, progressive, innovative, and able to create a world for ourselves wherever we go. And he said, we're dropped down in the most advanced capitalist industrial civilization ever, and we're not lost. We're taking it. We're stylizing. And people see how black people wear dress. It used to be a thing where you'd say, well, when you bring people up from the South, they look like country bumpkins. But he sees black people who are 2 or 3 years from the South, they're wearing suits and they're wearing them in a unique black way. And then we find after a while that whites start trying to dress like black people. And so it's sometimes we focus a lot on what is ours and authenticity, but I think we should actually focus on what we do with other people's stuff. So, for example, even today, I'm amazed at what, for example, black creators have done with TikTok and Instagram. I mean, you turn on there and you see people using those mediums to do histories of black inventors.
That's right.
You're doing history of black patents. Critique the latest episode in white supremacy. Give out black relationship advice. All in platforms that essentially a TikTok is from China. Instagram is from a white guy who went to Harvard. We didn't have to go to Harvard to actually take those and make something new and compelling, a new form of history, a new form of knowledge, so that when we look and we say, oh, it's so bad that they're cutting black history programs at universities. Yes, that is bad, but we're actually finding new places to teach African American history to ourselves. And that's that iterative, creative part of our heritage that I think doesn't get enough attention and enough acknowledgement.
You used this phrase earlier that I said I want to come back to. Now it's a perfect time. You're on that path right now, talking to me more about the notion of how black folks have used art to escape.
Yes. Well, the person who captured that in a phrase was Ralph Ellison, who he said, change the joke and slip the yoke. Okay, and so that's what you're always trying to do. You're trying to change that joke and make it something, and then escape out from where they're framing you. And that's so even something like TikTok or Black Twitter, these are things that are supposed to be advanced things that white people have. We've taken those and actually used them as a form of black communication and empowerment. You see, that's escaping the idea that you're often in a black community or a white community somewhere with not many allies, people who've backstabbed you, people who are unsympathetic. You go to Twitter and you find a community. So I think that's one of the things that the art does. It fosters community. And in terms of the electronic age, you can foster community across the United States, across the world. And I think that's what we're beginning to see in some of these platforms.
What was the response? I'm gonna circle back now.
Yes.
Again, for those who are listening, I want to make sure you're clear on both of these books. The New Negro, an interpretation by Alain Locke, was published 100 years ago today. And our guest, Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, won the Pulitzer Prize a few years ago for his book about Alain Locke. It's called The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. And we celebrate his win the Pulitzer Prize again for that particular book. Watching my clock here, let me just tee this question up. When we come forward, I'll let you respond to it. I am fascinated to know what the response was then to this book by Alain Locke, The New Negro, that is talking about this thing called the Negro Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance. He pulls all this, calls all this together in one text to get us to recognize and to appreciate the way that black folk are showing up in society. What was the response like then to the text? I mean, obviously, it has been enduring because all kind of black folk listening right now, as I said earlier, including yours truly, studied Alain Locke in our black history courses in college. But what was the response to this text when it came out 100 years ago today? That response and more from Dr. Jeffrey Stewart when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley, Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, historian, professor, UC Santa Barbara, vice chancellor, author of his own book about Alain Locke called The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. For that book, he won the Pulitzer Prize. But we are celebrating the work of Alain Locke. His book, The New Negro, an interpretation, was published 100 years ago today. In case you've just tuned in, I'll say for the third time, I'm honored, delighted, thrilled that Dr. Stewart brought in a first edition copy of this book that was, again, published 100 years ago today. What was the response to this text when it came out?
Yes, well, in the republication that is coming out in Oxford World Press of this book that I just did, I chronicle the responses, and there was a tremendous positive view from people who often weren't very supportive. H.L. Mencken, for example, the caustic writer at the American Mercury, basically said that it was the first time that he saw black people throwing off the inferiority complex, and even saying in some places that actually black people are superior to white people. And he thought that was a good thing to be able to say. Even radicals like Doxy Wilkerson, who was a socialist at the time, I interviewed him for the biography. He told me that he was stunned by the book, that he, even though he was in the black community, didn't know that there were that many writers and creators and musicians and even university professors. They didn't know that. It was largely invisible in the media, you see, because the media in the 1920s did not foreground black success, black excellence. So the book had, like, it just dropped like a bomb, in the sense that there were some people who didn't like it. They wanted the old Negro. In fact, one of his friends at the Survey Graphic, he says, it's the music of the old Negro, the spirituals. You know, we want you to stay down on the farm. We want you to be pastoral. We want you to not be modern. We want you to be a primitive that'll allow us to feel that better about ourselves. And he said, no, we have primitives, but we have moderns. And the modern is what you're encountering in this book. So overall, I think it was a spectacular reception for the book, and it catapulted Locke into a kind of celebrity, which allowed him to earn a living giving lectures and speeches, because right after he published the Survey Graphic in March, he was fired by Howard University in June. And so he needed this book to create a career for himself, and it did. And it led to an impact where all sorts of people run around calling themselves new Negroes because they wanted to distinguish themselves from them old Negroes. You know how that goes. It became a thing on the street, you know.
I get it. Yeah. I'm a new Negro.
Yeah. Come on, get behind me, you old Negro. You know, so it was a whole signifying thing that came out about it, too.
I can see that. In our remaining moments with Dr. Jeffrey Stewart, I want to ask him, he said something to me during the break a moment ago that I want to give him a chance to sort of unpack on the air here. I think it's worth your hearing. He said this book, and the one that he has coming, it really is an antidote to the Afro-pessimism that we're hearing so much about these days. I want to probe his thinking about how this work really is an antidote. And he quoted to me that line from
Langston Hughes.
Langston Hughes, yeah, thank you. We have tomorrow bright before us like a flame. We have tomorrow bright before us like a flame. I'll let him connect all that in our remaining moments when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward. Forward.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card, so let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed. I got 4.5 minutes left here, and I want to rush through a couple of things right here with Dr. Jeffrey Stewart. The way that this book, this work, can be an antidote to the Afro-pessimism that we are being inundated with. Talk to me about that right quick.
Yes, well, there's no person probably who had more inducement to be pessimistic than Alain Locke. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was short, he was gay, he was disliked by many people, he was a prickly, difficult person. Mm-hmm. He was put down, he was marginalized. He never really received the kind of accolade or even leadership position that many other less qualified blacks did because of the prejudice against him. And yet at the same time, he consistently reinvented himself over and over again. So I asked myself, what is that? It was a deep belief in the possibility of the future. It reminds me of something that my a friend and colleague, the artist Ben Caldwell, who has a place not too far from here, who says, the future is not colonized. The future is not colonized. Yes, they've colonized a lot of our past.
Yeah, but not the future.
But the future is still open to be created, to be fostered in new ways. And if we think about this intelligence, and we think about how did black people in the past, who had more obstacles than we did, could actually succeed and build the platforms we now stand on, then there is an alternative. Not to say that there's anything wrong with being Afro-pessimistic. Obviously, Richard Wright and James Baldwin and many of these plow this ground. But there will also be people like Locke. I remember in one of the things he heard Du Bois speak, and he wrote to somebody, he says, every time I go and listen to Du Bois, I'm depressed afterwards. He said, I want to do something where I can give something for our children, our young people to believe in. And I think that's happening today. I think young people are feeling a certain freedom and that we can actually use. One of the things I think we can begin to do is use this intelligence, not just in aesthetic, but also in scientific and engineering. You see all of the information coming out now about all the black patents that were done that were suppressed. Locke led me to Benjamin Banneker and to understand Benjamin Banneker. And I've been working to try to create a Benjamin Banneker Innovation College up at UCSB. There's other people. Ben Caldwell's created a whole transportation system in Leimert Park, trying to get ready for the 2028 Olympics.
Yes, sure.
I mean, there are people who are using this aesthetics to create a new way of being black, and that's that iterative process. We can be something different than we've been, and I think that's an important thing for black people to keep their minds on.
And that's why that Langston Hughes line so resonates. We have tomorrow bright before us like a flame.
Right. Yeah. And let's step into that flame and lighten them up.
There you go. There you go. I am just in awe of anyone who would spend 30 years of his life writing about. I mentioned Taylor Branch to you during the commercial break. Taylor Branch and others come to mind who spent their entire careers. Taylor Branch, of course, his subject is MLK. Yours has been Alain Locke. I just have great respect for those who spend time, decades, in fact, researching and doing the writing to bring us the stories of these persons who otherwise would not get the respect they deserve were it not for these scholars who bring their lives to us. So again, his book about Alain Locke is called The New Negro, The Life of Alain Locke. For that book, he won the Pulitzer Prize and the National Book Award. Jeffrey C. Stewart, the author, and our guest in this hour. And we close now this celebration 100 years later of the book called The New Negro, an interpretation by Alain Locke, published again 100 years ago today. And what a great honor it was, sir, to have had you in studio to talk about it.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
It's my delight to have had you here. And just like that, 3 hours are gone. I'm back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until tomorrow, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. Dozens of new laws go into effect this week, including a bathroom bill. It's the Texas Women's Privacy Act, which conservatives have been pushing for the last decade.
Worked on for